Welcome to Talk to Satv, sponsored by Grand Palace Hotel and Resort, where we dive into the deep discussions of most pressing global and national issues. Amongst us today, we have renowned international relation commentator, Mr. Shamsul Pantho. We welcome you today in our show.
For having me.
As you have seen, the world is loitering around different situations now. The world order that's been set after the Second World War, now it is definitely in threat. So we have a fear, we have a suspicion that the world order that has been created after the Second World War, whether it will last or whether we are going towards Third World War. As you have noticed, the world is in dilemma. World is two axes are departed from each other. Now they're in front of each other. Dialogues going on, threats going on. So there are the dichotomy that is being huge day by day. So what do you think? Whether time has come that UN is going to fail very soon?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on today's program as well, and thank you for hosting this wonderful show. You started by talking about the world order and how things are leading up to the month of January. Today is, of course, 19th January, and in the last 19 days, certain things have changed. But I want to focus more on what led to the actions of the last 19 days. First off, a couple of months ago, the leadership of China had hoisted and has shown the entire world of its military capacities in a parade to mark 80 years of since World War II. And as far as history can be reminded, or if you look at history, war is the constant in the so many centuries that have gone down. War is a method of, it will come back over a couple of years or so. Of course, last year was the 80th anniversary of the World War II and how the world has progressed on to a more neutralistic stance in deterrence, if you would call it. But in the last 19 days, certain things have challenged the international law, challenged international diplomacy. First off, I want to mention by saying the U.S. military forces had shown their excesses in the Caribbean Ocean. They had blown up suspected alleged drug trafficking boats without the opportunity of them facing trial. Whether or not they were doing such an activity was not confirmed by anyone. And then not only so, we've seen the arrival of the Delta forces inside Venezuela, the attack, a sudden nighttime attack on the Venezuelan military infrastructure, the capture of Nicolas Maduro, who is of course very popular in his own country. Later we find that Nicolas Maduro was taken into the United States in New York to be prosecuted. So this direction that the United States is walking on, some say that they are breaking international norms, international law, and when a nation like United States breaks such laws, it opens various venues for other nations to do likewise. Why I say so? Because after the World War II, if you would call it, the United States had created its unique position as the leader of the global or the free world. And of course, in 2026, there are multiple rivalries. I just want to mention what it opens up. There is the Chinese claim, the mainland claim of the fact that the Taiwan used to belong to China. Of course, Taiwan is an independent state, and there are multiple tensions in the South China Sea regarding this issue. Then there's, of course, the 3.5-year-long war between Russia and Ukraine. These are venues that have been ongoing. Of course, last year, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he had worked on active ceasefires across the globe. Some of those include India and Pakistan, Azerbaijan and Armenia. Also, Malaysia had brokered, through the U.S. help, the ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia. So all of these venues can now reignite, as far as I know as an international affairs commentator. In the last 19 days, Nicolas Maduro has been captured. The Venezuelan oil is now being plundered. The word plunder refers to a term when a pirate in the ocean will capture another vessel and take all of its resources.
Exactly.
So that was the medieval era term. Today, we are looking at in a modern 21st century perspective, where Donald Trump had ordered the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Who is Nicolas Maduro? He's a leader of a nation, a sovereign nation. if you were to do certain acts, of course, the other venues that I've mentioned, they would see this as, if US can do it, why can't we? So there is definitely a double standard. But history seems to be repeating itself continuously. This year we also see the movement towards Greenland. So it's a very heightened time in which you can't tell who is a friend and who is a foe.
That's very important, because as you have mentioned in your discussion, that United States has the responsibility to operate so that the world can live in peace. We can remember about the President Truman's statement, because after the Second World War, when the Winston Churchill went to the Harvard University,
Right.
and when he has given the speech, he said that because UK has lost all his authority, because after the Second World War they went to bankrupt. So Churchill requested Truman that United States of America has to take responsibility to operate in the world, so that world peace could be observed, it could prolong. So United States has, moved from that promise that Truman made like 70 years ago, around 70 years ago. So do you think that it was a big shift? Because as you have mentioned about the taking out Maduro out of Nicolas Maduro out of Peru, because same thing happened when Osama bin Laden is captured from Pakistan. Even the Pakistani authority didn't have a clue that US is operating, and Barack Obama is watching, and he has been
Right.
taken out from Pakistan. So it's not new, but still they have kept the promises, United States of America. So now did we shift from that promise? So that is my question.
Of course, shifting from a promise, the United Nations and the United States of America, if you look at it closely, even during Barack Obama's tenure, even during Joe Biden's tenure, there was a certain respect, a regard for the United States to take the right decision. Regardless the fact of the Osama bin Laden capture, like you mentioned, during Obama's rule, even back then and those times, it was a position of respect that everyone would talk to the United States. They had their first person of color as their leader of the nation, Barack Obama. But the rivalry between Barack Obama and Donald Trump was a matter to be seen. At a White House ballroom dinner, we've seen how the two leaders have exchanged heated arguments. And of course, if you look at Donald Trump, one can assume that he is now only the president of the United States. But previously, he is a businessman. He is one of the richest people in the United States, as I know. And he comes from a different background of establishing businesses. And of course, there are certain instances that I want to point out here. Recently, the United States are having an expansionist policy, saying that the Western Hemisphere must be in control of the United States. And the Arctic, there's a fight regarding the Arctic Circle. And right now, Greenland is an autonomous territory, which is a sovereign nation partnered with Denmark. So Denmark has all the sovereign rights regarding Greenland. Given the fact in the last couple of years we used to refer US and the allies as US and Europe. Today they don't see eye to eye. The latest being that today Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of UK, is supposed to address 10 Downing Street regarding the fact that Donald Trump had imposed a 10% tariff with anyone who supports the sovereignty of Greenland. It also includes France, Germany as well.
Who sent troops to Greenland as
who
well.
also sent troops to
And
Greenland.
he has
yes.
threatened that he will impose high tariffs, who has sent troops to Greenland.
Of course, as I mentioned earlier on in our different program, it's a very trying time because for one reason, there is an old partnership between US and the allies, the partnership also known as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. Now, NATO's articles define that any NATO country under attack, it will be served as an attack on all the NATO countries. So that is the baseline or the bottom line for NATO. And on a different aspect, when Ukraine were to become a part of NATO, that is when the Russians had reacted and this fight had broken out. Because in 91, the entire goal was that Europe shall not look eastward. Europe shall not, the nations in Europe shall not capture or contest with Russia on their flank. So right now NATO is under stress. Last year in August, the two leaders of US and Russia had met in Anchorage, if I'm not wrong, in Alaska, in a US base. And the entire world seemed to get the impression that it was a win for Putin, but not necessarily a win for Donald Trump. Today, this nexus between these two leaders is partly the reason of this issue regarding Greenland. Now, Greenland is one of the Arctic nations, is full of snow. Of course, it has a lot of minerals. I want to just slightly point out that the world is going into a position where innovation is the key change maker. For innovation to happen, you need minerals that will support this technological
Rare
boom.
earth elements.
Rare earth elements that you'll have to mine out of various locations. And the US's position regarding oil, regarding crude oil, regarding minerals, I'm sure that they have their own reserves in their own nation, but that they do not exploit or that they do not let go of. But the foreign exchange of from minerals from outside is a matter of concern. Donald Trump continues to say that Greenland is a matter of national security, security of all the 50 states, whereas a neighbor of the US, Canada, Mark Carney, had visited Xi Jinping of China. So Donald Trump's entire rhetoric regarding Greenland is we cannot allow Russians and the Chinese to have any kind of dominion power regarding Greenland. And that's where I think where policy changes into more of a military outfit or a military intervention comes in, where you don't see eye to eye. Dialogue is not on the table. And honestly speaking, United Nations is or was used to be the mouthpiece of the world issues, or world issues would be decided at the UN Security Council, if not at the UN General Assembly, when all the leaders of the world had met or do their meeting. Last year I was at the UNGA, and I figured to come to realize that there is a double standard. First off, this meeting was to understand the statehood of Palestinians, in which Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the UNGA, and almost 75% of the attendees in the General Assembly Hall had walked out in a show of protest. So when certain elements like that happens, one must definitely acknowledge the fact that they are some kind of genocidal power, with almost 80,000 lives, deaths in Gaza, completely attributing to the fact that this was the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, that have conducted this atrocity. Even after, how can the leader of such a nation still be allowed at the UNGA while the PLA of Mahmoud Abbas was not even allowed a visa to enter the United States of America? So there is a double standard amongst those who attend the United Nations. But in an overall, I would say that even common U.S. citizens are not happy with Donald Trump. And at the end of this year, we have a midterm election, and impeachment sounds are being heard, even by those who comment on my program on international affairs as well.
Well, some of the Senate members and Congress members, they're visiting Greenland now.
Yes,
and
the bipartisan
they're reiterating about the fact that the voices of 75% people of the United States of America isn't heard because they don't want to annex Greenland. So we will talk about more. We will talk about Europe's future as well after the break. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to go on a break. Please do come back after the break, because we will be discussing about the Europe's future and whether Europe could sustain its economy, whether Europe could sustain militarily in front of Russia, China, and America. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk to Satv, sponsored by Grand Palace Hotel and Resort again. Before the break, we were discussing about how the world has shaped in this new era. Mr. Shamsul and Pantho, my question to you.
Right.
Europe is economically very strong. Militarily, it is nowhere. Politically, there are so many differences between the nations. So how do you see the future of Europe, whether they're subservient, whether they could act collectively, whether they could control their future without the aid of United States of America? What do you think?
Thank you for the question. First off, World War II and the venue of World War II was in Nazi Germany. It was also, once again, in Europe. We've seen post-coronavirus back in 2020 or earlier of a Brexit of a package that had been introduced from the UK government, in which they had severed their ties with Europe. But once again, if you would like to think about from 2023 onwards, that policy had completely gone down the drain. I would say why? Because of a common enemy, of a common threat that the UK faces from Russia. So that is when the UK understands, or the United Kingdom understands, that no, they must keep their relationship with Europe intact, because the entire world would want to see these two dominions be called in one group called Europe and the UK. If you would like to think about territorial integrity, at this moment, NATO's Mark Rutte has said that every nation of NATO must increase their spending of, or allocate more spending regarding military infrastructure towards, as a NATO requirement, from 2% to 5% of their GDP. And that would go up until 2035. So it's a 10-year-long or a 9-year-long plan in which they do. But some of the nations have said that, sorry, we cannot meet eye to eye. And one of them includes Spain. So the foreign minister of Spain had said that we don't see a requirement to increase our defense spending.
But point is whether Europe has the capacity to raise that budget, because their life standard will be in threat. A lot of EU citizens' life standard will be in threat, because much of the European states are welfare state. So do you think that Europe could endure this pressure, financial pressure that is coming?
There is an issue of energy security. There is an issue of a financial burden. When a nation is seen spending too much on military infrastructure, of course, allocation of resources come at a question.
True.
And if you look at the entirety of Europe, there's a common currency that they all use, the euro. And anything that would affect the euro would not only affect any one country, it would also affect all the other nations that follow trading with euros. In that sense, I want to get back to the remarks of the leader of Italy, Giorgia Meloni. She's a lady. She's a lady who's been running Italy with an iron fist, if I would call it. Earlier, before 2026 had presumed, she had made a remark saying that 2026 will be the year of a lot of fighting going on. She said that 2025 was nothing. It will be nothing compared to what we see in 2026. And she had said that right after Christmas last year. And just from January 1st to today, January 19th, we see that the US position has moved completely out of control. Even though it took them 1 year of negative rhetorics regarding Nicolas Maduro, they had successfully captured him. Right now, if, say, suppose China were to attack Taiwan, the US is already busy with its expansionist plans, even though Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan are US allies. So back then, information was not so readily available during 1920s in the First World War, and of course 1940s during the Second World War. However, in this decade, in this generation, when a nation or a leader of a nation even were to whisper a message, that message would be gone throughout continents. So that is the difference between the past and today. Social media plays a huge role in convening these messages, as I believe. So once again, a leader must remain cautious into what they say. We know that Donald Trump is not so cautious. His leadership style is pushing the tree to see which fruit falls out. So he always has this push and pull strategy that he uses with almost every nation. And that has been quite so dangerous for the American future.
I'll interrupt you over there. So as you have mentioned that he's pushing every tea, whether any fruits comes out or not. But isn't it playing with fire? Because as you know, that as you have mentioned in your discussion, that he has threatened Peru, he has threatened Iran, now he threatens Greenland. So isn't it the too much enemy that he is facing or he is making by the process of threatening tariffs and all the the absurd remark that he is making every day? So if the war has broken out in every frontiers, then does United States of America has the capacity? Because the Iran intercepted the Iron Dome of Israel. They have the supersonic Fatah missile.
Yes.
So as we were discussing that US troops and UK troops were withdrawn from Qatar military base. So they might, and the Abraham Lincoln is towards South China Sea,
Right.
close to the South China Sea. So there is a possibility that it might go, these aircraft carrier would be used to intervene either Greenland or Iran. So, as you know, Tom missile is equally powerful.
Right.
So, there is a war imminent, it seems like. And so, where are we heading towards if really war breaks out? And what would be the a situation of Europe and America if the war truly breaks out? So, what is your opinion on that take?
Beautiful question, beautifully framed. One looks, if you follow the money, let's follow the money. The U.S. Military spending budget of last year was $1 trillion. If you look at the top following nine countries' combined budget would be $1 trillion.
Exactly.
And as of recent, of this year, the U.S. administration is planning for a 1.5 trillion. So another 500 billion has been added to on top of that old budget. So they are the ones, their military industrial complex is spending a lot of money to understand how this market can expand. And of course, without having a war or having an active situation, you cannot test your missiles, you cannot test all of these equipment, weaponry. But coming back to it, it's not just United States government's position on all these other territories or all these other border skirmishes, if you would call it. I want to focus on some of the things that Donald Trump has done inside his own country. That includes deploying the National Guard across all 50 states. And then there's been two instances where his policy has fractured the societal fabric of United States of America. One being that ex-serving personnel in the Afghan war had shot a National Guard and in Washington, D.C., just a month and a half or 2 months ago, and that had caused the morale to go down between the National Guards. What is the job of police? What is the job of the county sheriff? What is the job of the U.S. military? If the National Guard was used to make sure that crime rates were to go down, of course, that is a job for the districts or the state's policemen to do. So the removal of the responsibilities of what each civil society member has is an important issue. And then we have the Immigrations Enforcement Agency, also known as ICE. So what ICE has done, they have conducted various deportations, whether it be Latin American individuals living in Texas, whether it be Indian nationals or immigrant population living in New York. I have personally reported the fact that even before an immigrant became the mayor of New York City, Zoran Mamdani, even before that, Donald Trump had issued the ICE agents to go in to Lower Manhattan to capture the street vendors, to have them jailed up, locked up, and being deported. Well, they of course have some kind of contribution to society. The millions of people that walk around Manhattan, food is not readily available. So these street vendors will come in aid of the general population. So you must understand who has what kind of role in society. And then as of recent, a mother of two, a 37-year-old woman, of course with the ethnicity, white ethnicity, so she is definitely an American, a Caucasian American. She was seen driving away from agentic situation where agents were on the ground, and an agent had opened point blank shot her while she was driving, and the car had gone into a ditch, and her name is Helen Good. And the video of this shooting in Minneapolis, in Minnesota as well, this video became viral through the means of CNN, through the means of
the disabled.
Yes, she was disabled and she was killed. And that very sight had become the issue of discussion between common Americans, where common Americans aren't safe in the hands of the civil society or those who do work for the civil agencies, such as the police, the statesmen, or the county sheriff. And at this time it was ICE agents. Certain people in the U.S. administration, Kristi Noem, had come to the defense of the federal agents. But we must understand that a person was killed. She wasn't tried. She did not face a court of law. And merely on gut feeling, she was killed. Of course, gun laws and that other debate is a huge debate to understand in 50 states. But the ICE agents could run a number on her car plates. The ICE agents could offer her a court ruling in which she would be incriminated of resisting arrest, instead of being shot in the head and instead of being killed in a manner and a fashion that they have done. It is almost similar to the Hitler's Nazi state, where any kind of dissent would be met with the killing, unjust killing. So ever since then, the tensions in American society still remain. And the whole fact that the administration has applied ICE to go on to multiple states, to multiple kinds of raids, that they believe there's a huge crime rate going up in the United States. However, even today I was giving an example of the Chicago, Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, someone who does not meet eye to eye with Donald Trump, and he has taken Donald Trump to court as of last 6 days ago, according to Reuters. So it is not that Donald Trump himself is calling all the decisions. He does not have any kind of respect for international law, any kind of respect for Congress, the Senate, that decides on any kind of ruling. Earlier on, he took on premier colleges, premier education facilities. He had a fight with Harvard. Multiple million, he had stopped the endowment fund of Harvard, government funding of these esteemed organizations. And really, he, as a businessman, people may love him. As a real estate tycoon, he has earned the heart of millions. But as someone who to lead the state, as someone who has the capacity to understand the rights and wrongs, or to understand two sides of the story, maybe there he is not performing as well as people have the expectations of him.
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to go on a break. But as we were discussing that a movie star can create dramas, can create adventures, but Donald Trump, whether he has the capacity to be the national leader or to be the international leader, because he himself is facing the song in his own country. We will discuss a lot more after the break. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to go on a break. Please do come back after the break. Welcome to Talk to SATB, sponsored by Grand Palace Hotel and Resort. Before the break, we were talking about how austerity measures have been taken on US nationals. There is unrest going on, and it sparked like George Floyd incident, but the difference is George Floyd was black. Now, irrespective of race, creed and nationality, the austerity measures are going on by the state agencies. So that's the situation of the United States of America. Asia is feeling the heat as well. As you have mentioned, that everybody is fearing China. But within that, there is a news that came last month that there is a possibility of forming Islamic NATO between Saudi, Pakistan and Turkey. There is a security pact between the Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. Here they say that attack on anyone, intervention on anyone, either Pakistan or Saudi Arabia, will be considered as an attack on both. And Turkey desperately wants to be in the league as well.
Right.
So the purpose of Islamic NATO, there's a bigger question that because of the geography, because of the divergence of opinion. So do you see any future of this Islamic NATO?
Well, thanks for the question. I want to mention a special mention towards the Organization of Islamic Countries or Council, in which the Islamic nations do see eye to eye on various international global issues. You mentioned Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and Turkey. So I want to begin with Turkey. Its leader, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is a very firm leader, has hoisted the Turkey's image across the entire planet. Before it was known as Turkey, today is known as Turkey. So this differentiation, of course, I would like to thank him, because he is the one who utilized Turkey's effect of the crossroads of the world. We used to know it as crossroads of the world, both European and Asian elements. So, and the defense military enterprises have boosted its sales. They do sell armaments to almost everyone in the global order, including our nation, Bangladesh. So we have Turkish military equipment.
We have demands.
As well. And they are also adopting a dome theory around protecting their own nation. So if you look back at the broader question that you asked me regarding the Islamic NATO, they would of course have that old NATO-styled agreement where an attack on one is an attack on all. So that of course provides some kind of framework or some kind of protectionist measures between the Islamic nations. But even if you look very closely at the fact that Islamic nations do not meet eye to eye with Israel's expansionist ideas, the whole factor of a ceasefire is to come back to dialogue, is to stop doing barbaric acts, to come back where gentlemen can talk, sip a cup of coffee, and understand the differences, and understand how they're going to trade between one another. There's giveaways. One must, to attain something, one must have to lose something as well. That is how I feel about it. That is how I think about it. If you look at Iran, I had visited Tehran earlier in 2023, and to my surprise, I found a nation that is very loving of their government. I found a nation that is very welcoming to outsiders, especially those who are coming from abroad. I went as a part of the Faj Film Festival, so I also met other filmmakers from around the globe. And what I realized that their hospitality to international people was outstanding. So at a moment when heightened tensions include Iran and its regime of the Islamic Republic, started in 1979, and to this day the US was not able to topple this revolutionary government. Before, however, the CIA was implicated in toppling of Mohammad Mossadegh, who was the democratically elected leader of Iran. And of course, there is a monarchy in Iran, Reza Pahlavi, who lives in the United States. So he is trying to garner his support from the people of Iran. But Iran faces a very acute crisis between the clergy, those who are in charge of the religious rules and law. Of course, it's a theocratic state. So Iran is feared. 403 kilograms of enriched uranium had disappeared. And uranium, of course, is required for nuclear weapons. So the IAEA, the Atomic Energy Association, even they had some kind of trouble with the Iranian scientists that are working on this uranium issue. And the last year's 12-day war had proved that Israel would call upon the US as an ally, and the US will always be implicated in creating foreign wars, in creating foreign tensions in foreign lands, as I believe that they have no issue with Iran only for the fact that they don't want Iran to have nuclear weapons. Coming back to the Islamic NATO question, if Saudi Arabia were to be attacked today, Pakistan has a defense pact in which Pakistan would retaliate. Of course, that kind of attack is not imminent. There is no one challenging these countries, but there is someone challenging Iran. And there is shifts between Islam, if you would call it. There is a Sunni majority, there is a Shia majority, and the Shias are, of course, Iranian majority that are leading their nation. So there are rifts that others may want to exploit in this fact. But if you want to come back to the power, the strength, the unity between Islamic nations, it is at an all-time high.
Okay. Let us get back to our country, Bangladesh.
Right.
Barrister Zaima Rahman, who is also your classmate back in ISD.
Right.
So she first made her public appearance into the policy meeting, and she reiterated about her commitment about women's rights. As we all know, if a nation has to go forward, women has to come forward as well. Without the contribution of women, a nation cannot go forward. So what do you think her first policy appearance, and how do you envisage Bangladesh in regarding women's rights?
Thank you so much for changing the topic towards Bangladesh and how it's been run ever since the ousting of the previous government and, of course, a dictatorial government. Ever since then, the country has been in rough waters. We are seeing narratives, counter-narratives coming in from our neighborhood. We see a new kind of defense strategy between our neighbors as well. We see a China-Pakistan, China-Bangladesh, and Bangladesh-Pakistan, a triangle of relationship in which, of course, if you look at SARC, It's been defunct since 2014.
Exactly.
And there is no kind of understanding, no kind of diplomacy or dialogue between such nations. And when an organization such as the SARC, it was initiated by late President Zia Rahman, as far as I know, it's been defunct. No one has been actively collaborating or talking about the venues that they can work on. And in the last 15 to 16 months after the ousting of that previous dictator or fascist regime, we see that narratives towards Bangladesh, apparently there is Islamic, we have become an Islamic state, there is extreme a kind of Islamic terrorism going on in Bangladesh that affects the people. All of these narratives were pushed towards us from India. So, and not only so, the whole fact that our ousted Prime Minister is residing in India is a major giveaway of their past and how they have included themselves in Bangladesh's policy making. You mentioned Zaima Rahman, Barrister Zaima Rahman. Of course, I had the privilege of studying alongside her back in International School of Dhaka before 1/11 and all that situation had happened. And from a very young age, I would see that she's a very simple woman, and she would be open to all. So the whole fact of discrimination, I have never felt that from her at all, given the fact that she does belong to political hierarchy. Yesterday, of course, on the 25th of December, she had come back. Her entire family had arrived from London, and they were received very warmly. And they went to the various authorities to get their national identification done. And all of this is a part of news. Yesterday, in a surprise at the Krishibid Institute of Bangladesh, she had participated in a women empowerment or the roles of women in policy making in society in various cases. One of the most important factors I think that she reached out was the role of women in society. It is not just giving birth to children, but also having positive contributions in society that she mentioned. And one of the things I really enjoyed what she had to say for Bangladesh. Of course, these many years, 17 to 18 years that she wasn't home, a lot of things has changed. Of course, bureaucracy and how the system continues to grow. You see, there's a statement in Bangla that the head of the state may change, but the feeling, the vibes, the attributions of those who work for the state will not change. And certainly so, the top leadership brass of various ministries have been changed, but those who work for Bangladesh in a mid-level, they're still there. And everyone is of the fact that we have ousted a regime who did not allow participatory elections in 2014, nor in 2018, and nor also as well not in 2023 or end of 23. So that amounted in a popular uprising. And today we are seeing the political hemisphere change. We have a popular Islamist political party, the Jamaat Islami. So a lot of, and the recent coalition with National Citizens Party had took a shock to the entire Bangladesh political framework. And many of the women in NCP had resigned as a cause of this grouping. Of course, it comes at a very important time where Barrister Zaima Rahman is trying to fill in this gap. The ousted Prime Minister was a lady. And of course, on 30th of December 2025, we had lost another one of those ladies in power. So effectively so, women in power is at question. And I must thank my friend Barrister Zaima Rahman that she is taking this initiative to bring back women's role in a position of power. I think it's very important for our society to grow. Of course, one thing that is a matter of concern, that you might have views that the majority may not entertain. You might have views that the majority may entertain. So it's a very clouded waters, if you would call it. And at this moment, the election is upon us. It is coming right next month, maybe 23 or 24 days are remaining. And we will see whether or not it is a competitive election. We will see the contribution of immigrant population that lives outside Bangladesh, and at most we have to see how the security agencies will try to keep the security intact while voters are going to visit the polls. So this is a very important strategic time for Bangladesh, given the fact that even last month Myanmar had an election in which they completely disregarded the Rakhine state. I want to bring that issue because it is a matter of national concern. We have 1.6 million people of a different country living on our land ever since 2018. No successful government has addressed this issue of our sovereignty. No successful government has created any kind of solution. So I'm looking forward to solutions. I want, in my opinion, I want to see a government that works for its people, works for the restoring of Bangladesh's sovereignty.
Mr. Shamsul Pantho, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shamsul Pantho, a renowned international affairs commentator, he expressed his concern about about Islamic NATO because of the sectarian difference that we do have, whether it will bear fruit or not. He expressed his concern and expressed his doubt that Mr. Donald Trump, as he's pushing every tree to bear fruit, he's even in tension in his own country where protest is going on. He has serious doubt about women empowerment because that is in threat in this country, and he expressed his concern about the election. He reiterated about world order, whether it's being in threat or not. As we all know, back in 2003, when Junior Bush attacked Iraq, he didn't take any sanction or authorization from the UN Security Council. As we all know, French vetoed, and the Kofi Annan, after 2 years, he actually asserted and admitted that it was violation of international law. That was the first violation of the UN Security Council. Compared with his father, Senior Bush, who has taken authorization from the UN Security Council, and he was able to engage the whole world community when Saddam Hussein annexed Kuwait. So there is a difference. So on 2003, when it started to break international law, when the international community started to break international norms, from that day onward, we came to this era of Donald Trump, where international order is in threat. So it is our concern, it is the world community's concern, it is the peace-loving citizens of the world's concern that this international order should exist, should, go on, so that peace and international security and international brotherhood could be ensured. On that hope, on that expectation, we are ending the show tonight. Thank you very much for watching Talk to Satv, sponsored by Grand Palace Hotel and Resort. We will be back next week. Until then, goodbye. Allah Hafiz.